Hi, hello to you all, and good evening. Good evening here. It's probably day after in other places. Welcome to the third Simplify Live, a live Q&A meeting with me to answer your questions. And today we have also participants that join us via the phone. We can see you, but once we enable the option, you'll be able to go ahead and ask your questions if you have. And no, Ashira that sent us a question. Do I have to have a question? No, you don't. You can just listen if needed and enjoy the questions that other asked. That's perfectly okay. And as always, your comments, praise, or criticism is greatly appreciated. And if you guys, the ones that are in the Zoom, want to ask questions, just raise your hand or just type it in the chat. And anyway, at the end, I'm going to open the ability to unmute, and you will be able to ask any questions. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and start this Q&A session. So our first question comes from Mary that wrote, I have two fears. So let's start with the first, and it has only one word, claustrophobia, which is a fear of closed spaces. And I'm meeting with people that face claustrophobia many times, and it is one of the drivers of fear of flying, because being in a place which is closed and you cannot get out, really triggers claustrophobia. Now, I don't have a way to solve your claustrophobia. I'm a pilot, as you know, and I can give you information. However, to deal with claustrophobia, which has many levels, as you all know, you have to just be, first of all, be confident in the place you are. So if you are in a closed room, for example, but you feel safe, then it's easier for you to deal with claustrophobia. Now, let me tell you a secret. Don't tell anybody. I also have a bit of claustrophobia. You will never find me crawling inside a tunnel somewhere. No, I don't do that because I don't feel confident there. So the only thing that I can tell you, Mary, and the others that are dealing with claustrophobia, that if you can enhance the confidence that you have in the flying, then it will help you better fight the claustrophobia and fly. I realize that there are people who suffer such a harsh claustrophobia that this will not be enough. So treatment by a therapist or whatever will have to be in place there. So in short, clear the fear of flying, then you'll have more energy to fight the claustrophobia. I hope that answers the question. Now, Mary's second question is she's worried of having a fellow passenger act menacing on a flight. Now, this is very clear, especially if you live and fly in the, as we call it, civilized world. We, the flight crew, have zero tolerance to unruly passengers. I am briefing the flight attendants before every flight, and I tell them that I am willing to step out of the way to enhance the feeling of a passenger, even if the passenger is not right, if the passenger feels that something bad would happen. But I have zero tolerance to unruly passenger, menacing passenger, because it's not only that this passenger can do something bad to you, Mary. This is a risk to the flight, and we are the captains are not willing to do that. So we have unlimited authority to do whatever we need. And I personally can assure you that most pilots will instruct the flight attendants to help you if there is a problem. And if needed, we will land in the nearest airport to get rid of that passenger. So, and I think that as any other areas in life, yes, we can be in a conflict with a person, but on board a flight, you are safer because that person cannot go away, and we are very determined not to let these kind of things happen to you. Continuing with Yamit. I think I saw Yamit here, but I'm not sure it's the same one. Anyway, she has two questions. How do mid-air collisions not happen when there are so many planes in the sky going at such fast speeds? Well, great question, Yamit. You know, great question is a one that I have a very structured and ready answer for you. And that answer is on a clip in the Simplify app. If you're looking for the clip on planes, then we are dealing with this. But I'll give you the short answer, the short version of it here, and you can go deeper and look at the app. And actually, you know what? I'll show you a little part of that video. Now, let's start with the facts. In the airline aviation world, there has not been a mid-air collision for 20 years or so. And that's not by a chance or something like this. It is because we structured the way that we avoid mid-air collision in layers that each layer should be sufficient to prevent it, but there are actually 4 layers, and I will give you an abstract of this. So the first layer, and you know what, let me real quick look for the clip that I want to share with you. And I have it right here. Stand by. This is a clip from the Simplify app. I will share my screen just in a second with you, and we'll show you all what I'm talking about. Where is it? It is here, and share the sound. And I will start showing the video in just 1 second. I'm going a little bit faster. Okay. So, Ken Pearson, who is presenting it in the app. So when we're talking about the avoiding mid-air collisions, then we're talking about 4 layers. The first layer, which we see on the bottom here, is that every plane has its own route in the air. Now, when we are flying in the air, we are assigned, let's say, a road inside, which is 3-dimensional. It has its lateral dimensions and it has its altitude. But let's start with the lateral dimension. It is a corridor with a width of several miles in which we fly exactly, and the plane is very accurate in maintaining the lateral path. The second layer is the altitude, because if we're at the same place but not in the same altitude, then there is no problem. So we are assigned a specific altitude. The other planes that are on the same altitude are many miles away from us. More than this, I'm sorry. More than this, when we fly on westerly direction, then we fly at even altitudes. For example, 32, 34, 36,000 feet. And when we fly in the west, that was westerly direction. And when we fly easterly direction, we fly at odd altitudes. It means 33, 35, 37,000 feet. So there is, if we're flying opposite to each other, then we have by default difference of 1,000 feet between us. And the controller is controlling it, which is the third layer. Air traffic controllers have their own aerial picture. Every plane appears there with their specific flight plan. And this is how sometimes I get a call from the controller that tells me that in about 10 minutes, I will be too close to another plane, 10 minutes, and therefore at this time I have to climb or descend or change my direction. So we have a lot of time to go ahead and avoid too close, flying too closely to each other at the same altitude. So far we've seen 3 layers that prevent it. Let's go to the fourth one, which is what we call TCAS. It's traffic avoidance and collision system or something like that. It is a very simple system that shows us every plane in the area, and we can see if they are approaching us or not. And if there is a plane approaching us at the same altitude or climbing to our altitude or descending to our altitude, then initially we get a voice alert saying traffic, traffic. I'll show it to you in a minute. And then if we're still approaching each other at a converging altitude and trajectory, then these two systems will communicate between themselves, mine and the other plane, and will give the pilots opposite orders, one to descend, one to climb, and it is enough that only one pilot will comply with these orders to avoid the conflict. Now, this order by the system is mandatory to obey, even if the controller tells us other things. So these 4 layers are completing each other to avoid such a conflict. And let me show you this clip, reminding you that you can see it in the Simplify app, but it will be 2 minutes of this. So let's listen to it.
We've already gone through 3 layers of protection, but we're not over yet. What happens if all these layers of protection aren't enough and there's an impending dangerous situation approaching? Coming to our aid is a simple and very reliable system installed on every aircraft, which shows us, the pilots, all the planes close to our vicinity. The system is called TCAS, the Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System. This system is mandatory to fly through the air routes, and not only does it give us an accurate aerial picture of traffic close by, it also does another pretty amazing thing. When the system detects a potential collision between 2 planes, both in space and altitude, it alerts both pilots on each plane involved with an aerial and visual alert. There's no problem if we are at the same place and time but at different altitudes. And if that doesn't help and the planes keep getting closer, the systems in question communicate with each other and then give instructions to both pilots, one to descend and the other to climb. Coordination between the systems makes it possible to ensure there is guidance for both planes, and that this guidance or order will arrive early enough for the maneuver to be simultaneously quite subtle, but also provide appropriate separation between the 2 aircraft. Let's watch a simulation of an event like this and see what it looks like from inside the cockpit. This is the navigation screen of our plane, and our plane is flying up relative to this screen. At the top of the screen here, we see a plane approaching and flying at the same altitude. As the plane continues to advance towards us, we will hear this call on the cockpit loudspeaker designed to get our attention.
Traffic, traffic.
In this case, we have not responded and the approach continues until the situation requires intervention.
Climb. Climb.
Please note that the symbol of the oncoming plane turned red, and we were ordered to change altitude. At the same time, the second plane was ordered to fly in the opposite altitude.
Clear of conflict.
This call means the event is over. If this happens in the air, this situation would be dealt with by the country's aviation authorities and investigated as if an accident had really occurred. They do it this way because this was the last line of defense, and if it collapsed, would be mandatory to check what went wrong along the way. It is interesting and important to note here that in the event this TCAS system is activated and the pilots are ordered to maneuver, this command takes priority over other commands, including air traffic controller instructions. This system must be obeyed.
So I hope that answers completely the question. And again, you are all invited to see this in the Simplify app and learn more about how things are prevented. Yamit's second question was, I was on a flight once where the plane dropped a lot during turbulence. Why did that happen? So we're not going to get much deeper into turbulence. We spoke about it in the other in another Q&A session, and there is a very long clip on board inside the Simplify app. I will say this, Yamit. First of all, even in severe turbulence, when you feel the plane really shakes, actually the plane does not drop. It maintains altitude more or less the same. It does not drop, but your mind, your brain is deceiving you. And that is explained more in the turbulence clip in the app. But basically, since you don't have, like in real life, you don't have the view the outside view of houses, of people, pedestrians, etc., like you are driving in a car, then your brain thinks that these movements are much greater than they are, and your mind is deceiving you. I'm sitting in the front and I can see that, no, the plane does not drop. It does not drop. Sometimes in very severe turbulence, we are having a hard time to maintain exact altitude. It's not dropping. It's, like in a ship, in a boat that is not really maintaining exact altitude because of waves, but it's not dropping. And in that case, which is extremely rare for me, in the last 19 years of my flight as an airline pilot, I've never had such a situation of not being able to maintain exact altitude. So in short, the plane does not drop and your mind is deceiving you. And more details in the turbulence clip, or ask again and I will elaborate if it's not clear. Okay, the last question that I got before I let you ask any questions if you want is in the Fear of Flying group that I'm here, and it's a good time to recommend. There are two great groups on Facebook. One is the Fear of Flying support group, and the second one is Paul Tizard's Love Fly group, in which you have pilots and fearful flyers that you can communicate and get answers to questions. And I'm there. I'm a part and happy to help there. So I got this question 30-something minutes ago. I'm not sure if the one that asked this question is here, but never mind. She wrote to us, any pilots on here, because we are there, the weather from JFK to BQN, I don't remember what the place, but anyway, looks terrible Saturday morning. Can the weather change by then, you think? So we are now on Tuesday, which makes it Tuesday noon, let's say at JFK, which makes it 4 days before the flight. No, it's much too early to think about this weather. And that's one thing. Good prediction of aviation weather, because you don't care if generally on Saturday there will be weather. You care if it's going to be when you take off. And in order to get that accurate information, you have to look more or less 24, even 18 hours before the flight. So it's much too early to answer about it. And it can change, and it can be 2 hours after you leave or 2 hours before you take off, and you don't care about it. That's one thing. But the second and more important thing is that we have strict limitations about weather, and we're not willing to risk ourselves as pilots in flying in severe weather, which is beyond the capability of the plane. And we're not willing, actually, the riskier thing is to lose our license, because if we are violating the restrictions, which are much more restrictive than the actual capabilities, we will get our license suspended. So no pilot will risk to take you from JFK to BQN in a weather that either does not meet the limitations of the plane, or even does not meet the legal limitations, which are much more restrictive. So I hope that answered your question, and that's what I have on my plate here. I love it. Okay, so let's see what you wrote. Great answer. Thanks so much. Thank you, Yamit. Mary, thank you. And Andrew, who can see your messages? Recording. Oh, just sorry. Thank you. That was very helpful. Okay, no question. Anybody has any questions here before we conclude this session tonight, today? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, Lauren, unmute yourself. If possible.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you? Okay, so I submitted this question, but I guess you didn't get it. I submitted it through the Facebook link, but it's twofold. So the first question is autopilot. I watched a documentary on the Qantas flight where the autopilot overrode the pilot, and it thought that terrain was ahead when it wasn't, and so it corrected in a way that he couldn't override, and they made it, but it was a close call. So I guess that's my concern, is that there's something autopilot can do that actually locks the pilot out.
No, there is a very easy button on the stick, on the yoke, what we call. When you push it, the autopilot just disconnects, period. It cannot override that. So I don't know which event you're talking about, Qantas. If you send it to me, I will look at it. But no, there is nothing the autopilot can do if I disconnect it.
How could I send it to you? Where would I do that?
Facebook, or go to simpliflyapp.com and send us an email, or.
Okay. So the second question is about pilot suicide, because I feel like you were just talking about, you're not willing to risk your license. That's my concern with pilot suicide, because I feel like they can't be honest about their mental health because their license is on the line.
Okay, so first of all, I have to be honest. There is no way that the civilization knows how to treat with a single person wants to commit suicide with other people. It can be a bus driver, it can be a truck driver going on a whatever. However, in flight, let's start with facts. We know about 2, maybe 3 events in the flight history in which pilot suicide. 2 or 3 events, period. That's all. So, and second thing, there are 2 pilots. So if they want to do it, they have to overcome the other pilot who apparently don't want to die. So I don't have a, 100% bulletproof answer to you. But first of all, remember, we don't have these events often. It's very, very rare, and it's very difficult. It's much more difficult than committing suicide with a car, with a bus, with a truck, or whatever. Sorry.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
I mean, I know that you have a co-pilot there and there's supposed to be 2 people in the cockpit at all times, but I mean, if a co-pilot goes to the bathroom, and there's just a flight attendant in there, he can do whatever he wants.
Of course. And again, I can't tell you, sorry, I can't tell you there is a way to overcome it, waterproof, and that's all. I can't tell you that. I'm not going to lie. So I'll get back to this again. There is no solution. However, we fly together with each other. We know we are in a close place together. It's very difficult to hide if the other partner is troubled, if the other pilot is not in a good position, and eventually that's the only thing that I can offer you at this time. It's not bulletproof.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
For the question anyway. And Anju asks, I have a question, please. If the air in the plane is recycled, I always feel I struggle to breathe in a flight. That could be because I'm panicking. Yes, it's because you are panicking. All the air in the plane is being changed, going in and out every 3 minutes or so. Yes, there is a kind of circulation, but every 3 minutes, all the air in the plane is replaced. And look at the same video that I talked about before, about the planes in the app, and there is the air that we breathe in the plane. And you will understand it very easy. And yes, it's because you feel bad and you are panicking, and go ahead and calm yourself. This will help you very, very much. I hope that was good enough for you to understand. And if you still have questions, go ahead and ask me again. We'll meet again. So for now, thank you for tuning in to this podcast on flight or fear flight. I hope that you find it both informative and enjoyable. I try to be enjoyable also. I want to take a moment to thank you all the participants for sharing your concerns, because this is a concern of many, and you are their voice. You all could see that there are many answers that are available in the clip that you have in the Simplify app in the clips. So go ahead and look there. It's very informative. And as we conclude, I want to remind everyone that despite occasional news report, and the last thing that we spoke about, suicide or whatever, flying is the safest form of transportation. And by understanding the mechanism of flight and safety, you can feel safer. And thank you again for listening. We look forward to bringing you more informative context next month. Our next meeting is in April 25th, same time, and we will publish it so you all can join us. And there will be a link to ask questions, and go ahead, feel free to ask questions. Thank you, safe travels, see you next time.